So I guess I'm one of those people who doesn't really believe in coincidences either. There's a few of us who seem to fall on one side of the line or the other. But in 1998, I was graduating from high school, and as our grad council president, I had to give a speech in front of our entire graduating class during our commencement. And I remember thinking really long and hard about our theme. It was lighting the way. And I spent untold hours on Alta Vista or whatever this terrible dial-up, horrible dial-up we had at that time, trying to find the perfect quote that would capture our theme and also what I wanted to share with our class. Eventually, I found a quote from the Bible, "A lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." When I gave my speech, I talked a lot about keeping an eye out for those lamps or those signs and opportunities that would show us what our path was going to be. But truth be told, I already knew what my path was going to be. You see, I wanted to do my PhD in anthropology, and I was going to be this amazing academic in the ivory tower, formulating all these grand opinions on what I wanted to call Muslim feminist theory. So I was giving all this great advice, but I already knew what I was going to do. So fast forward a couple of years later, and I'm a second-year university student. My parents introduced me to a young, brilliant, handsome young man with the intention that we would get married. So we actually hit it off. We fall in love, and we quickly realized that although our parents had put this semi-arranged marriage thing on the table, the ability for us to go to the movies without a chaperone until we were married was not on the table at all. So we did what any young couple in love would do. We got married immediately. I quit school, I traveled across the country, and I joined my new husband, who was a graduate student. Eventually, I was able to resume my studies. It wasn't without some hiccups, but I got there, and I was grateful. So I'm entering my senior year, and we discover I'm pregnant. Woo! That was not expected. We're in our 20s, we're broke, and I still have one more year before I'm gonna get my degree. So I'm thinking, okay, what else is gonna happen? This is great. Well, a couple of months later, 9/11 happened. And I feel like all of us really remember where we were, what we were doing, what our thoughts were at that moment that we found out what had happened. And for me, there was two thoughts that came through my head. The first was, what a horrible tragedy. It was unspeakable. And the second thought was, oh my God, I hope it wasn't a Muslim terrorist. So a lot of things changed for our community after that. And quite frankly, things changed for everybody. But we had the Patriot Act, we had special registration, all these things that we didn't really understand how or if they were going to impact us. And around that time, we had a cousin who had asked us some advice on what profession she should pursue. I gave her this really impassioned plea about how our community needed more lawyers. And the reason was we needed to understand what these laws meant. We needed to understand, what are these policy changes? What are our rights? What is happening? And she listened really politely, and she said, well, why don't you become a lawyer? And I was like, no. I have my path. I know what I'm doing, thank you. I have no intent of becoming a lawyer. Not only are we broke, but I'm very pregnant, and I am not doing law school as a mom. This just sounds awful. And I turned to my husband, and I'm like, he's gonna back me up that this is a terrible idea. But instead, he goes, yeah, why don't you become a lawyer? I'm like, I think you know why. Like, this is crazy. I'm not going to be able to do this. Not only at that time was I not sure I was going to graduate from college, I still had a year. But because I had already applied and been accepted into a master's program, you know, just trying to get there with a newborn just seemed so daunting. And what ended up happening was I actually didn't end up going ahead and doing my master's. I did graduate from college, and I carried my little 6-month-old on my hip as I got my diploma. But then I decided I needed to take some time. And you can imagine being 21 years old with a new baby. I didn't know what I was doing, and I needed a minute to figure that out. I needed to make sure I knew how to take care of my daughter. So we moved again, and this time, for my husband's studies, I took that year and a half, realized that I was going crazy at home, and I started to apply to school again. I applied to 10 grad schools, and I didn't get into a single one of them. But I also, for reasons unknown, quite frankly, applied to a single law school. And it's funny, because when I tried to think of why did I apply to that one law school, all I can think of is I already had those 10 applications set up, and I literally Googled closest law school to my house. I didn't know what an LSAT was, but I saw that I had several months until the last deadline where I could write this thing. So I thought, why not? I'll throw it in the mix. I got a full ride to law school. Thank you. You're all clapping, but I did not want to go to law school. And by the way, I was pregnant again. So I'm looking at this situation, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is so hard. I am not going to be able to do this. And I had a friend at that time who gave me this really touching speech about how I was sitting on this winning lottery ticket, and I needed to take it, and I had to do this. And I was so touched by it, and it wasn't until like several years later that I realized this was the speech from Good Will Hunting, where Ben Affleck convinces Matt Damon to go to school or something. But at the time, I was really, really convinced that this is so inspiring. And then the school wanted like $200 as a deposit for my seat, and I'm thinking, I'm not giving them $200. That's a lot of money to me. So my husband goes, you know, you really need to at least go visit the school before you decide what you're gonna do. And I hadn't even visited the school yet. So here I am in my first trimester, very hormonal, and I'm like, okay, I will go and visit the school before I give them my $200. And all I remember of that day is walking into this really beautiful building and being so nervous. I mean, not only am I hormonal, but I'm thinking about how hard this is gonna be. I have a 2.5-year-old. I'm gonna be 5 months pregnant on day one. We are still broke. He is still in school. This is impossible. I see all these people walking around. They're greeting each other, and nobody looks like me. They all seem to come from this like pedigree legal background where their parents are lawyers and everyone knows what they're doing. And I stopped for a minute because I realized I'm standing on this giant seal that's on the floor of the law school. It's a seal that represents the law school. And when I look down at my feet, I kind of black out for a minute and I start to panic. In the center of the seal is a giant lamp. And I think that's the moment when I knew I was going to be a lawyer. A lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thanks.
Thank you, Hinna, Upal.